You know the moment when arrogance walks straight into accountability and realizes, just a second too late, that money can't save it? That's exactly what happened the second Connor Blake flung his traffic ticket at Judge Frank Caprio like it was beneath him. That paper didn't just flutter through the air, it might as well have been a brick tossed at the very idea of respect. My dad pays your salary. 6 words?
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
6 smug, poisonous syllables. The courtroom didn't gasp, they didn't need to. The silence hit like a drumbeat. It was the kind of silence that only happens when someone goes too far and everyone feels it in their gut. Connor didn't flinch, at least not at first. He stood there, chin up, drenched in the kind of generational confidence only billionaires' sons possess. His entire demeanor screamed, "Let's get this over with, peasant." And yet across the bench sat Judge Caprio, legendary for his mix of compassion, clarity, and the uncanny ability to humble even the cockiest offenders with just a question and a raised brow. What Connor didn't realize is that he wasn't walking into a courtroom, he was walking into a lesson, one that money couldn't buy his way out of. The file was thick. This wasn't just a one-off ticket. Caprio had body cam footage, eyewitness statements, street surveillance, and oh yeah, text messages, not just casual texts. These were the digital receipts of Connor's absolute belief that his last name could erase consequences. He literally wrote to his dad's legal team, "Let me know when this little ticket problem disappears. I don't have time to play games with these nobodies." Nobodies. That's what he thought of the court, of the law, of Walter Harris. Walter was the man he'd harassed on the road. A Navy veteran, decorated, 77 years old and still standing tall. The footage showed it clearly, Connor weaving through traffic like he was in a video game, cutting Walter off so closely that it nearly caused a 3-car pileup. When Walter honked, Connor pulled up beside him, rolled down his window and laughed in his face. "You should have stayed in the retirement home, old man." Those words echoed off the courtroom walls when Caprio played the footage. Every eye in the room turned to Connor, and for the first time, he blinked. Caprio didn't raise his voice, he didn't need to. He read those texts out loud one by one like slow drops of gasoline hitting a flame. Then, without skipping a beat, he
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
asked, "Mr. Blake, are you proud of these words?" Connor tried to pivot, "You know the move. I didn't mean it like that, and I was just upset," and the classic "it's being taken out of context." But Caprio just nodded quietly and said, "Let's talk about context then." And suddenly this wasn't about traffic violations anymore, it was about character. This is where the story could have ended. Caprio slaps him with a massive fine, maybe suspends his license. Connor walks out, pays the fee, forgets about it over cocktails at the country club. But no, that's not what happened, because Caprio saw something underneath the smugness, something buried deep beneath the entitlement and the designer sunglasses, something that maybe even Connor didn't know was there. He handed down a sentence no PR team could spin: community service at the Veteran Support Office, mandatory public apologies, educational outreach, and it wasn't optional, it wasn't curated, it wasn't performative. It was personal. Caprio looked Connor in the eye and said, "You will learn that respect is not something inherited, it is something earned, and you've earned nothing yet." The room went silent again, but this time the weight wasn't on Caprio, it was on Connor. He started the service with all the grace of a wet cat. He was awkward, defensive, clearly thinking this was beneath him. One veteran asked him to help reorganize supplies and he responded with, "Isn't there staff for that?" But slowly, so slowly, something shifted. Walter Harris was there, not just present, involved. And he wasn't there to make Connor miserable. He was there to test him, to see if the kid could actually change or if this was just another rich boy performance. And what did Walter do? He talked to him, told him stories, not with anger or bitterness but with clarity. He didn't shame Connor, he educated him, made him see that the man he mocked was more than just some old guy in a car. He was a father, a leader, a man who earned every wrinkle on his face. Connor started showing up early, staying late. He began listening more than talking. One day, Walter watched from across the room as Connor helped an elderly vet into a van, no cameras, no spectators, just care. The speeches came next. And if you're expecting Connor to walk into a high school and deliver a TED Talk, think again. The first one was a mess. He stumbled, forgot lines, got called out by a student who flat out said, "You're just here because you got caught, right?" Connor paused, looked at the kid, and said, "Yeah, I did get caught and I deserved to." That moment, that's
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
when it started to click. He didn't try to be polished, he just told the truth, talked about how easy it was to mistake privilege for power, how no one ever told him no until a 77-year-old Navy vet and a judge who saw through his nonsense showed him what accountability actually meant. Word got around, more schools called, more teens listened, not because he was famous but because he was real. Then came the film, a short piece written and produced by Connor about respect behind the wheel, not flashy, no expensive drone shots, just interviews, stories, real people. Walter narrated part of it, and when it aired at the local driving academy, parents cried, kids clapped. It wasn't perfect, it was honest. 1 year later, Connor walked back into Caprio's courtroom. Alone, no lawyers, no handlers, just him. He stood there quietly and handed over a report of everything he'd done, not as a checklist but as proof of growth. Walter stood too, and with the same voice Connor once mocked, he said, "This young man disrespected me in public, but he apologized in private, and then he earned that apology with action. I forgive him." Even Caprio took a moment to collect himself. He looked at Connor not like a judge looking at a defendant but like a mentor looking at a student who finally got it. He said, "Let this be a lesson not just to you but to everyone who thinks wealth can insulate them from consequence. What matters is not how you started this journey but how you chose to finish it." And just like that, it was over. But here's the part no one expected. Connor didn't stop. He kept volunteering, kept speaking, kept creating programs for driver awareness and veteran outreach. He cut ties with the family business, refused the easy life, said he wanted to build something that wasn't built for him but by him. Do people still doubt him? Sure, that's human, but he doesn't argue. Doesn't defend himself online, he just keeps showing up. Because Connor Blake finally understood something his name alone couldn't teach him. Respect is earned every single day. And now it's your turn. What would you have done in Judge Caprio's shoes? Was this sentence fair? Too soft? Would you have accepted Connor's apology or told him to take his remorse back to Daddy's yacht? Sound off in the comments. I want to hear your take. And if you live for stories where ego collides with reality and something actually good comes out of it, don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe for more wild courtroom sagas, public meltdowns, and rare redemption arcs that make you believe change is still possible. Because at the end of the day, you can inherit money, but character you have to.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
Earn that. So let's talk about what happened after the courtroom closed and the headlines faded. Because yeah, Connor Blake got his moment. The courtroom clip went viral, the apology speeches hit YouTube, and for a second he became the face of Rich Kid Redeems Himself. People debated him on talk shows, podcasts dropped full episodes about the Caprio smackdown, and Twitter had a field day. But then, as always, the internet moved on. A new scandal, a new celebrity flop, a new meme. But Connor, he didn't move on. He didn't pivot to clout chasing or drop a redemption merch line. He didn't hop on a docuseries deal or try to milk the moment for fame. He stayed in the work. That's the part that most people didn't see because it wasn't sexy, it wasn't newsworthy. There were no cameras, no interviews, no curated posts, just Connor showing up quietly, again and again. He kept volunteering at the Veteran Support Office, not for hours, for years. He stuck around even after his mandated service was over. He took on odd jobs, scheduling, inventory, even helping with grant paperwork. He sat with veterans just to listen. Sometimes he didn't even speak. He just showed up as a driver, a pair of hands, a steady presence. And slowly, the community that once side-eyed him started to nod when they said his name. But it wasn't just about the service. Something deeper changed in Connor. His worldview shattered, his sense of identity rebuilt from the rubble of that courtroom moment. Because when your entire life has been a cocktail of privilege, ego, and escape hatches, you don't realize how hollow it is until someone forces you to sit still. Judge Caprio didn't just hand him a punishment, he handed him a mirror. And Connor looked into it. He looked and saw the truth, that his wealth had shielded him from consequences for so long he didn't even recognize humility when it stared him in the face. But Caprio and Harris and everyone else in that courtroom, they saw it, they called it out, and they made sure he didn't forget it. Now you might be wondering, what about his dad? Harrison Blake, the empire builder, the man with a Rolodex that probably includes senators and Silicon Valley founders. You'd think he'd be proud of Connor's transformation, right? Wrong. Let's just say Daddy Blake didn't take the redemption arc well. He was furious. Because in his world, reputation is everything. And Connor, by choosing to be accountable, tarnished it. By admitting fault, showing remorse, working with veterans, and refusing to cash in on the family name, he made Harrison look weak, vulnerable, like the Blake name could be challenged. There were arguments, big ones, explosive ones. Connor walked out of one particularly nasty family dinner and never looked back. He turned down board seats, closed the door on family investments, and told his dad flat out, "I'd rather be broke and honest."
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
Than rich and hollow. Mike dropped in the marble-tiled dining room. From that point on, Connor made a conscious decision to distance himself from his past. He moved into a modest apartment near the community center, gave up the designer suits, started biking to meetings. He swapped steak dinners for soup kitchen shifts. He didn't pretend to be struggling, he chose to live simply, to remove the noise, to get as close to real as he possibly could. And for the first time in his life, he slept peacefully. No performance, no image to uphold, just effort, accountability, and purpose. He started mentoring young people, not as a guest speaker but as a consistent figure. He helped launch a local youth driving safety initiative with a focus on empathy and conflict de-escalation. The program now runs in multiple school districts, thanks in part to partnerships Connor secured without leaning on his last name. He even started a small nonprofit called Drive with Dignity, a mix of education, public safety outreach, and storytelling. It's not flashy, there's no viral dance challenge, but it's real, and it's working. His short film, it got picked up by a regional public television station, not because it was a cinematic masterpiece, but because it spoke to something we've all seen: how quickly respect gets lost on the road and how dangerous that can be. Walter Harris narrates the final segment, and when he says, "We don't need faster cars, we need slower tempers," you feel it. Walter and Connor now speak together occasionally. They're an unlikely duo, the grizzled veteran and the reformed billionaire's kid. But it works. Their bond is built on pain, forgiveness, and something rare in this day and age: mutual respect. But let's be clear, Connor's life didn't get easier. He wasn't suddenly celebrated. Some people still don't believe he's genuine, others think he's trying to build a new brand of soft boy billionaire for clout. And you know what? That's fine, he doesn't argue anymore. Because he knows the truth. That respect is earned in silence, in sweat, in showing up when it's inconvenient, in doing what's right not when you're being watched but especially when you're not. And that's the legacy Judge Caprio left behind, not just in that courtroom but in Connor's life. Caprio retired not long after Connor's final court review. Quietly, no grand exit, no press conference, just a final gavel bang and a lifetime of receipts proving that justice, when done right, can change a life. Connor was in the courtroom that day. He didn't sit in the front, he didn't speak, he just watched. And when Caprio exited, he stood silent, respectful, a man who finally understood what earned reverence looked like. So here we are. One moment of arrogance, one act of reckless entitlement, and a journey that turned into something way bigger than a traffic ticket. Connor Blake went from being the face.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
Of spoiled privilege to the quiet advocate for dignity and accountability. Not because someone told him to, but because he chose to. He walked away from comfort, from power, from a last name that could have smoothed his path for life. And he walked into the work. And let's be honest, Connor Blake wasn't supposed to be the one who changed. No one bets on the rich kid. We've seen this movie before, right? Entitled Heir messes up, gets caught, cries on camera, and then vanishes to a private island while a PR team scrubs their name off the trending page. That's the usual arc. Spoiled brat, public embarrassment, then silence and a yacht. So when Connor stood in that courtroom, smirking, dismissive, quoting his father like that was a get-out-of-jail-free card, everyone watching knew how this would end. Or at least we thought we did. But the twist, it didn't end in another bought redemption, it didn't fade into tabloid obscurity. Connor didn't ghost the consequences, he sat with them, marinated in them, and then he did the one thing people with power almost never do. He listened. You could see it happen gradually, not in some cinematic montage but in the little stuff. The way he carried himself after the second month of community service, shoulders a little less stiff, phone left in his bag instead of constantly in his hand. The way he started asking questions instead of making assumptions. The first time he addressed Walter Harris not with apology but with respect, not because it was part of his court sentence but because he meant it. He stopped performing, stopped trying to charm his way through the process. And maybe the real turning point wasn't a big moment at all, it was small, human. One of the vets at the center, Tommy, a Vietnam-era medic, had been struggling with a complicated VA claim. Connor offered to help, not with money, not with connections, but with time. He spent 3 straight afternoons poring over paperwork, Googling acronyms, calling support hotlines, writing letters. No one asked him to, no cameras, no glory. When it got approved weeks later, Tommy called him kid for the first time, not as an insult, as an invite. That's the thing about respect, you don't declare it, you earn it. And you don't even always know when it's been given, it just shows up in the way someone says your name, the way they look you in the eye instead of past you. And as Connor started living like someone trying to earn, not demand, that respect, people noticed. Kids at the schools he visited didn't just listen to his talks, they felt them. They didn't see a polished motivational speaker, they saw someone who had messed up badly and owned it. Someone who knew what it was like to be in the wrong and be called out for it, publicly, painfully, permanently. He told them things most adults wouldn't. That consequences aren't punishment, they're a mirror. That the worst thing isn't getting caught, it's not learning anything when you do. That respect doesn't come from your Instagram followers, your clothes, or your last name. It comes from how you act when there's nothing left to hide behind.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
And the most powerful part, he didn't say it like he was preaching, he said it like someone who learned it the hard way. At one event, a student asked him point blank, "Do you wish you hadn't gotten caught?" Connor didn't flinch. He said, "I wish I hadn't done it, but getting caught, that saved my life." Let that one settle in. Because that's not something you say unless you've looked in the mirror and didn't like what stared back. But here, what makes Connor's story more than just a redemption arc? It's the fact that he didn't let the story end when it was convenient. He could have walked away after completing his sentence, posed for one last "look how far I've come" post and disappeared back into anonymity, but he didn't. He kept going, quietly, purposefully, not because it looked good, because it felt right. And it's not like the world rolled out a red carpet for him either. Plenty of people still side-eye him, still bring up the ticket, the insult, the courtroom clip. And he doesn't argue with them, he agrees with them. He says, "Yeah, that was me, that happened, and I can't undo it. All I can do now is be better every day moving forward." When was the last time someone with that much power didn't try to rewrite their past? That's what makes this stick. That's what makes people like Walter Harris, who had every reason to stay bitter, step forward and say, he's not the same kid who walked into that courtroom, he's earned his respect. You can't fake that kind of endorsement. Now tell me, what do you think? Would you have forgiven him? Would you have believed the change? Or does someone like Connor Blake need to prove himself forever? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I'm reading all of them. And if you live for stories where the gavel drops harder than karma and personal growth actually sticks, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe to stay tapped in, and share this with the one person in your life who thinks a last name is a personality trait. Because if this story proved anything, it's that humility hits harder than a headline, and sometimes the most expensive thing you can earn is respect.